Hey everyone, I'm Bryan, and this video is a vlog about the time I went to see the Captain Janeway statue in Bloomington, Indiana. The footage used in this video is from a couple of years ago, and I was planning on making this the first video for my YouTube channel. That was before I decided on making videos about crafting and miniature stuff. I had edited the entire video a long time ago, and it was ready to go, but I didn't export a finished copy, which was a mistake. Unfortunately, I lost the project file when I migrated everything to a new computer, so I had to start from scratch to produce this version of the video. Anyway, I hope you enjoy, and let me know in the comments what you think about my first vlog, and maybe I'll make more videos like this in the future. A couple of years ago, I was planning on attending the Gen Con gaming convention in Indianapolis, Indiana. I had never been to this convention or Indiana, so I was looking forward to a new place to visit. Unfortunately, some scheduling conflicts came up at work, and I was unable to get the entire weekend off to attend the convention. It was possible for me to attend on the final day, but after checking various flight options to and from Indianapolis, I found out that I could only be in town for less than 3 hours, and then I had to be back at the airport for a flight home. The trip didn't seem like it was worth the time or the effort, so I canceled my plans. Sometime later, I was scrolling through social media when I came across a picture that showed a statue of Captain Janeway, a character from the Star Trek Voyager TV show. The statue is in Bloomington, Indiana, the future birthplace of Captain Janeway in the year 2336. I used to watch Star Trek Voyager when it was originally airing on TV, or at least the reruns, and I thought it was a weird coincidence that I would randomly see this statue that was an hour's drive from a city I had recently planned on visiting. A few days went by, and after thinking about it, I decided I was going to Indiana after all. Not to the convention, but to see the Janeway statue in Bloomington. I had two reasons for making this trip to see the statue. One, I thought it would be interesting, and two, I wanted to see if I could get there and back home in one day. I checked all the airlines at my nearest airport with domestic flights, and Southwest Airlines was the only airline that could get me there and back before midnight. This was the plan. I leave my home in the early morning and drive to the airport. Then, I take an early morning flight to Indianapolis, which included a very short layover in Dallas, Texas, and I expected to arrive in Indianapolis around midday. From Indianapolis, I'd pick up a rental car and drive to the statue in Bloomington, take a few pictures and maybe record a video, and then drive 2 hours southeast to the Louisville, Kentucky airport. From there, I'd take an evening flight back to the airport I started at, which included another layover at the same airport in Dallas. And after I got back to my starting airport, I'd drive home and arrive sometime in the evening. I chose to depart from the Louisville airport instead of going back to Indianapolis because the afternoon and evening flights from Indianapolis would include longer layovers and get me back to my starting airport after 12 a.m. the following day. I could have set my challenge to get to the statue and back within a 24-hour period, which was technically a day, but I wanted to make this trip in a single calendar day. At the time, I had not visited Kentucky either, so this route was an excuse to visit another state. On the day of the trip, I ended up getting to the airport a little too early, so I had a lot of time to wait before my flight to Dallas. The flight was on time, and I slept on the plane for most of the trip. We landed at the Love Field Airport in Dallas, which is the home base for Southwest Airlines, and I didn't have to wait long before boarding my flight to Indianapolis. Everything was off to a good start, and I hoped that I didn't encounter any troubles with the rest of my travel plans. The flight to Indianapolis was uneventful, and I tried sleeping the entire way, but I kept waking up because of noisy passengers and the occasional turbulence. The plane flew over Bloomington as we were making the final approach into Indianapolis, and I wanted to take a picture, but we were west of the town, and I was sitting on the left side of the plane, so I couldn't see the town from my window seat. As soon as we landed, I looked out the window again and saw that it was raining. Once I was off the plane, I looked at the weather forecast and saw that a big storm was passing through the area. I didn't look up the weather for some reason, and I was unprepared for the rain. I didn't bring up a jacket, and I was just wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Fortunately, it looked like the rain was moving away from Bloomington, so I hoped that I wouldn't get soaked on my drive to town. On my way to the rental car area, I passed through a hallway that had flashing lights and made weird beeping sounds, and it looked really sort of sci-fi, and coincidentally I was going to see something from a sci-fi TV show. The line at the rental car check-in area wasn't long, but I was getting behind in my schedule. I had also had a hard time finding the car in the parking garage because the employees gave me the wrong directions, and the car was positioned behind a large support pillar, so I couldn't see it from the main entrance. When I finally got to the car and left the parking garage, I was caught off guard by the downpour of rain and wind from the storm. My GPS wasn't getting a signal in the parking garage, so I pulled off to the side of the highway to plot a route to Bloomington and set up my camera. I wanted to get some footage of the drive to Bloomington, so I brought a suction cup mount with the intention of positioning the camera to look out the window. The camera was focusing on the rain and the water drops on the window instead of the scenery outside, and I didn't want to spend too much time adjusting the settings, so I just put my camera down and drove on. After about 30 minutes of driving, the rain slowed down considerably, so I pulled over again and carefully repositioned my camera to face the windshield. I didn't get very far before the camera mount wiggled out of alignment, so I turned it off and kept going. I was sort of expecting Indiana to be open fields and grassland, but I was somewhat surprised to see that the area I was in was mostly trees. Like these huge trees on either side of the highway combined with the rain and mist made it look like I was driving through a rainforest. I don't remember the exact route I took to Bloomington because I was relying on my GPS to guide me. On the way there, I drove across highways, down small county roads, passed through small towns, got back on the highway, went down more county roads, passed through more small towns, and then I ended up in Bloomington without even realizing it. As I got closer to the Janeway statue's location, I noticed that all the parking in the area was metered. A few days before my trip, I looked up the map of the neighborhood and I had seen a large parking lot near the statue, but when I got there, I found out that it was a paid lot and cost $7 per day to park there. The neighborhood was very crowded, so I had to drive around the block several times until I found a place to park. After fumbling with the parking meter, I jumped out of the car, turned on my camera, and ran down the block towards the statue. I filmed my approach and got a couple of pictures before running back to the car and driving off. And there you have it. I accomplished my goal of seeing the statue, but I still had to get home by the end of the day. I didn't notice this until later, but the puddle of water near the statue was actually an impression of the Vulcan salute. The whole live long and prosper thing. I was running behind due to the time it took to get out of the Indianapolis airport and the numerous times I stopped to adjust my camera in the car. I plotted a route to the Louisville airport, and I'm not sure which way my GPS took me, but I made sure to avoid the toll roads because the rental car employees told me that there were a lot of toll roads on the way to Louisville. At this point, I noticed that I did not have a lot of footage of my trip because I was just so busy trying to get to where I was going. I needed to cross the Ohio River to get into Louisville, so I pulled over again and set up my camera. I'd also brought a selfie stick, so I attached the camera to the stick and wedged it in between the armrest and the passenger seat. I turned the camera on and got back on the highway to cross the river. I didn't know if the camera was angled right or what I was filming, but I was surprised that the footage was stable enough and it got a decent view. Well, as decent of a view as a river can get. When I got into Louisville, I almost forgot to gas up the car, so I pulled into a random gas station to fill the tank. By the time I got to the airport, I had less than 30 minutes before my flight started boarding, so after the car was checked in, I made my way into the airport and up to the security checkpoint. After I got through security, I went to get something to eat because I hadn't eaten a proper meal all day. In my rush through the airports and to get to my destinations, I only had a couple of granola bars and a bottle of water. Since I was asleep on the flights, I missed the snacks and the drinks. After finishing my overpriced airport food, I went to wait at my gate for my flight back to Dallas. I looked out the window and saw a bunch of barbecue grills sitting outside. There were a lot of them out there, and I don't know why they were there, but I was too tired to think too much about it. But it was just something weird to see just sitting out there outside of an airport. Unfortunately, my flight was delayed due to the weather, and we ended up taking off an hour late. There was a huge line of UPS planes waiting to take off behind us, so that also caused some problems. Fun fact, Louisville is the primary hub for UPS's air cargo operations. When we landed in Dallas, I got off the plane as fast as I could and then zigzagged my way through the crowds to my next gate. The Love Field Airport isn't big, but my flight was set to board in less than 5 minutes, and the crowds of people made it difficult to get to where I was going. It turned out I didn't need to rush because the boarding process was delayed and we ended up taking off around 30 minutes late. I tried sleeping on the plane because I was very tired, but I didn't get much sleep because the other 2 people sitting in my row were very loud and talking during the entire flight. It was dark outside by the time I got back to my starting airport, and after the drive home, that seemed to take forever, I collapsed on my sofa and concluded my whirlwind trip to see the Janeway statue. Would I do something like this again? I don't know, but if I do, I would pick something a little closer to home. Despite the unexpected weather and close calls along my travel routes, I don't regret making this trip. I got to see a part of the country I had never been to before, and I visited an obscure attraction that most people have never heard of. I don't know if I'll do another vlog video for my channel since this was just a special case, but the possibility is always open. Thanks for watching my video, and stay tuned for something crafty in the future.